Hi, welcome to Quantum Habits. Today, we're gonna start a detailed breakdown of everything within this book. We are going to break this book down into a few videos so we can fully wrap our heads around this. By the end of these videos, you're gonna have a super clear understanding of how you can use these 7 habits to improve your life. I am so excited to review this book. Not only is it one of my favorite books of all time, but it is widely considered one of the greatest self-help books of all time. So let's jump into it. When you first get into the book, you will notice that it has a section called Paradigms and Principles before it gets into the 7 habits. A paradigm is basically how someone perceives reality, and the author explains why it's so important to understand that everybody has a different paradigm, and the way that they perceive reality could be very different from your own. So it's very important to understand that difference. These paradigms are built around your conditioning, your background, your environment, how you were brought up, and things like this. He also talks about paradigm shifts, and he gives an example. It's about a man sitting on a train and some children are running around the train being very loud and quite obnoxious. You know, swinging around the poles and disturbing everybody on the train. And this man is sitting next to the father of these children. And the man is thinking to himself, is this guy going to do anything, or is he just going to sit there and just not do anything about this? You know, this guy must be like an irresponsible parent. So anyway, he lets it go on for a few more minutes, and then finally, he has enough and he just says, excuse me sir, would you mind looking after your children? They are disturbing the rest of the train. And at that moment, this other man slowly lifts his head and says, oh, yes, I'm sorry sir. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. I'm very sorry about that. I've just come from the hospital and my mother passed away around an hour ago. So at that moment, this man's paradigm was completely shifted because for that 10 minutes, while he was sitting there in his perception of reality, he was thinking, you know, this guy is an irresponsible parent who lacks social skills. And in that instant, his paradigm was completely shifted and the way he thought about this man was completely different. A paradigm shift is any time when your thought pattern or the way that you perceive reality breaks away from traditional thought. He also says in the book that the quickest way to change someone's behavior is to change their paradigm. He then goes on to talk about this concept of principle thinking. So throughout this book, you can think of these 7 habits as principles. Another common theme throughout the book is this line of maturity, or the book refers to it as the maturity continuum. So as you can see, there's like 3 phases of maturity, and the first phase is the dependent phase. The dependent phase is all about you. You depend on other people. You have to do this for me. Why didn't you do this for me? Think of like a child when you're growing up. You're fully dependent on your parents and the people around you. That's the dependent phase. The next phase is independent. So this is about I can achieve this on my own. I don't need to rely on other people. That is the independent phase. And the last phase is ultimately what you want to achieve and what this book preaches, which is the interdependent phase. So this is all about we. Make relationships with people, whether it's a marriage, family, or the management team at your business. This is about getting good at making synergistic relationships with people. This line of maturity pops up throughout the book, and we'll come back to it a few times throughout this video. The last main theme that pops up throughout the book is the concept of emotional bank accounts, and I like this concept from the book. He gets you to imagine that everybody you have a relationship with and everybody that you meet has these imaginary emotional bank accounts within them. And these bank accounts you can deposit into or you can take withdrawals from. There are a heap of examples in the book, but I'll just go through some of the ones that I found here. So one way that you could deposit into someone's emotional bank account is just simple things like small acts of kindness, like saying thank you, saying please. Small acts of courtesy, things like this. A withdrawal would be the opposite of that. So being rude to someone using derogatory language is one example. The next one is the golden rule. Don't do unto others what you don't want to be done to yourself. Okay, I think we all understand this golden rule. Next, he says to apologize first, even if you don't think that you're in the wrong. So this takes courage. People that have an ego or they're prideful never want to be the one to apologize first. So he encourages you, if you want to make deposits into people's bank accounts, be that one to have the courage to apologize first. The next point is make sure that you clarify expectations with everybody that you meet. So whether that's in business or romantic relationships, make sure that from the get-go, you're clarifying those expectations with the other person in the relationship. You need to know who owns the role and what's the goal. So what are you both hoping to achieve and who does what? The next one here was keeping commitments. If you tell someone you're going to do something, commit to that. That's making deposits into people's emotional bank accounts. Withdrawals. Always canceling on people saying that you're going to be there. People expect you to be there and then you, hey, sorry man, I can't come, okay? That's withdrawing from their emotional bank accounts. The next one was don't gossip and talk behind the backs of others. I mean, we all probably know people that do this. We may do this ourselves. I know in the past I was probably guilty of this. However, for myself, I have a no gossip policy, which I've had for many years now. And I got that from this book as well as other books, to simply not gossip about others. Because I don't know about you guys, but for myself, if I meet someone that's gossiping about people behind their back, my immediate thought is that, okay, this person is probably doing the same about me when I'm not in the room. So that's a definite withdrawal, gossiping. And the last one, which I found was very useful and I would like to implement into my life going forward, was the concept of giving effective feedback. He talks about I messages versus you messages. I'll just read some here. For example, an I message would be, I've been having a problem recently and I feel somewhat neglected, versus a you message. You are a selfish person. You have a real problem. Can you see the difference? They're both touching on the same topic. However, you can feel the difference between the way that they're delivered. When you use you messages are something that labels someone. You're labeling them and that is just something that people don't react well to. This would take practice, but if you can deliver your feedback by using I messages instead of you messages and not labeling people, that is another way to deposit into those emotional bank accounts. Let's jump into the first of the 7 habits. And the first habit is to be proactive. At the beginning of this chapter, it starts with a quote that says, I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. Henry David Thoreau. I love these 2 last words, conscious endeavor. And that's basically what we're going into in more detail here. The first thing you need to understand is that your life is a product of your values and choices, and not your feelings and conditions. It can be if you choose to make it that way. So the first thing to take away from this first habit is that you are the creative force of your own life. Another way to put that is that you are the one in the driver's seat. Or in the book, it gives the metaphor of you being the computer programmer that is going to create the program for your life. He says that the best way to predict your future is to create it. How you do that is by being a proactive person. The opposite of that would be a reactive person. A reactive person is someone that's a slave to their impulses, a slave to their feelings and their emotions. And this is what we don't want to be, someone that lets the conditions of our life control our life. The next insight here is to take full responsibility for everything that happens in your life. You need to separate yourself away from all these external influences on your life and separate yourself from your past and everything that's happened to you. We all know these people that blame their past conditions for why they can't perform in the present. And it's not in this book, but I love this quote by Tony Robbins, and I thought it would match this. Be proactive. Theme, which is, don't let life happen to you, but let life happen for you. Okay, and it hammers home that being proactive mindset. You need to be 100% responsible for where you are at now in your life. And don't be one of these people that plays the blame game. The next insight is that your greatest power is your power to choose. The power to choose is how you respond to any condition that is thrown your way. One of my favorite books of all time, and he also mentions this in the book The 7 Habits, is A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. And I hope to do a summary of that book in the not too distant future as well, because it is my favorite book of all time. That book hammers home the point that you have the power to choose your attitude daily is an amazing thing. Another core concept that goes into this first habit of being proactive is the concept of stimulus and response. So how do you respond to a stimulus that is thrown your way? And he talks about between stimulus and response is the space where our greatest power lies. And that is your freedom to choose, and this is what truly makes us uniquely human. If we are to look at animals, they operate completely on just a stimulus and response loop. So it's all just instinct and training, whereas as humans, we can imagine we have self-awareness. We are aware of our consciousness, so we have this ability, this space in between. And that's that freedom to choose your attitude, so you don't want to go through life as a reactive person whom you know doesn't take advantage of this freedom to choose and manifest reality. The last insight from this first habit is the concept of the circle of influence and concern. Everyone has external influences and internal influences. If you see here on this outer circle, we have the circle of concern, and these are things that are just completely outside of your control. So things like the weather, politics, other people's weaknesses, economics, superior forces, pandemics, and etc. These things we need to learn to accept as they are and just get on with our lives. If we look at this inner circle, this is the circle of influence, and these are things that you can focus on daily. You can focus on these things and expand your sphere of influence. These are things like your mood, your health, your habits, your choice of work, the people you choose to be around, and your work-life balance, and things like this. So this is where you want to focus your energy. When you wake up in the morning, these are the things that you want to be focusing on. If you're the kind of person that wakes up and the first thing you do is check your Twitter and respond to the latest rant from someone else, and then you check the news and you get angry at what a politician said. These are things that are in your circle of concern, and you just want to try and eliminate as much of these influences out of your life so that you can focus on the things that you do have the ability to focus on and change. That's it for today's video. Tomorrow, we will be reviewing habits 2 and 3. Make sure you like and subscribe for more effective habits that'll lead to your success.